The rain soaked me to the bone, each drop a reminder of my fraying patience. And then I saw him, struggling under the weight of a bag almost as heavy as his resignation. Would I turn away, or step forward and alter both our destinies? In that instant, every raindrop seemed to pulse with possibility. I had never truly appreciated a city storm until that evening. The sky ruptured like a wounded animal, unleashing torrents of steel-gray rain that blurred streetlights into halos of liquid color. My umbrella, a cheap plastic canopy, snapped inside out, ribs collapsing under the wind's assault. Within seconds, my coat clung to me as though I'd donned wet canvas, my hair plastered to my forehead. The neon bus sign flickered one letter at a time, "Be you guys," then sputtered out, leaving me alone under the deluge. Feet splashed through ankle-deep puddles that had transformed the sidewalk into miniature lakes. Rain sluiced down my face, stung my eyes, and turned my glasses into smeared prisms. Thunder rumbled like a distant drum, mixing with the hiss of car tires displacing water and the hiss of street vents. My boots squelched with each step, every sound magnified by the storm. Then, through the haze, I saw it. A battered city bus, groaning to a halt, its headlights carved arcs in the gloom. I sprinted forward, rain spraying behind me in a chaotic fan. The driver, a silhouette in a rainproof cap, held the rear door open an extra heartbeat. Steam curled from the threshold like a warm sigh. Stepping inside felt miraculous. Heat and dry air enveloped me. The aroma of damp wool and aged leather mingled with faint traces of last night's fries embedded in the upholstery. Passengers sat huddled and silent, each cocooned behind fogged windows, shoulders hunched against the chill. Their eyes, distant and resigned, scrolled across their phones or traced rivulets down the glass. I made my way toward the back, scouting for a dry seat. That's when I saw him. A man stood near the center pole, gripping a duffel bag so soaked it dripped onto the floor. The canvas sagged with weight. He leaned forward, one foot on the step, the other braced on the aisle floor, an act of pure will to remain upright. His hood had fallen back, revealing dark hair plastered to his temples. The tension in his shoulders spoke volumes. No one moved to help. Feet remained planted. Eyes remained averted. My own burdens, late rent, my mother's mounting medical bills, tomorrow's make-or-break interview, whispered I had no business intervening. Why add another's load to my own? Then our gazes met. His storm-cloud eyes registered surprise, gratitude already shining behind dark lashes. In that moment, compassion, stubborn and bright, surged through me. The choice was clear. "Can I help you with that?" I called over the engine's rumble, stepping forward and offering my hand beneath the bag's strap. He exhaled, relief visible in a single breath. "Please," he murmured, voice low. He shifted the bag, and I felt its weight descend onto my shoulder. Leather straps bit into my wet hand, but I straightened, knees trembling in protest, and managed a small, encouraging smile. His hood slipped back fully, revealing sharp cheekbones and storm-gray eyes softened by gratitude. "Thank you," he said, voice hushed. His duffel now rested on my shoulder, pendulous and heavy, yet shared. I guided him toward the rear seats. Each step was a battle. The bus lurched, water sloshed underfoot, the bag threatened to tip me sideways. But I pressed on, buoyed by purpose. In that choice I found unexpected warmth, a flicker of connection in a cold, indifferent world. We reached an empty pair of seats, and I lowered the bag before sliding into the aisle-side seat. The heater's warm air brushed against my chilling limbs, steam curling around us in gentle tendrils. He sank into the window seat, water streaming from his coat sleeves into a small puddle. I rummaged in my pocket and produced a crumpled tissue. "Here," I said, extending it. "You might need this more than I do." He accepted it with a nod, pressing it to his brow before tucking it inside his jacket pocket. "Thank you," he repeated, voice steady now, genuine. Outside, the downpour rattled the roof in frantic rhythm. Through the window, traffic lights blossomed into halos. Neon signs bled into the wet pavement, and pedestrians scurried for cover. Inside, though, a fragile tranquility took root. Curiosity bloomed inside me. "Where are you headed?" I asked, voice soft. He glanced at me, shoulders relaxing enough to offer a weary smile. "Home," he said, though his tone held undertones of loss. "But not the home I remember." I nodded, understanding deeper than words. "Sometimes home isn't where you left it." His eyes flickered with surprise, then shimmered with shared recognition. "Exactly," he agreed, voice trailing as he considered the implication. The bus jolted around a curve, splashing water onto the windows with renewed fury. In that moment, he reached into his coat pocket and pressed a sleek black card into my palm, heavy in my damp hand. Gold foil lettering glinted in the cabin light. "Coffee?" he asked, voice steady. "Tomorrow morning, the Loft Cafe. My treat." My heart pounded against my ribs. An invitation, hope in a microcosm of plastic and metal. I stared at the card, then at him. "I'd like that," I whispered, awareness blooming that this was more than coffee. It was possibility. He offered a small, genuine smile. "I'd like to hear your story," he said. As the bus braked and steam billowed around us, I looked up to see his storm-gray eyes fixed on mine. "Your journey matters," he murmured. My pulse thundered as I pocketed the card, realizing this stranger, this man I nearly left to struggle alone, offered to rewrite both our narratives at that very cafe tomorrow morning. One simple cup of coffee, steaming and strong, felt like an invitation to a world I'd never known. His gratitude glowed brighter than the cafe's lights, yet beneath his polite smile lay a secret too big to imagine. In that brief moment, the aroma of espresso carried with it the promise of discovery. I had no idea how profoundly one shared drink could reshape the course of my life. Morning found me at the Loft Cafe, its wide windows blurred by last night's drizzle. I pushed open the door to the hush of warm air, heavy with the hiss of steamers and the rich scent of freshly ground beans. The tiled floor glistened where droplets had fallen, and soft jazz floated from hidden speakers. My coat, still damp at the hem, clung to my shoulders as I shook away stray raindrops. He was already there, standing at the counter with the casual poise of someone accustomed to privilege. A monogrammed linen handkerchief in one hand, he dabbed at the condensation on his glass. His charcoal coat, though damp, seemed deliberately unbuttoned, an expression of relaxed elegance. I joined the queue behind him, heart thudding with anticipation. When our turn came, the barista, tattooed forearm, precisely faded haircut, greeted us with a bright, "Good morning. What can I get you both?" His tone riffed between professional courtesy and genuine warmth. "2 espressos, please," he said, voice calm, yet electric with expectation. I repeated the order, voice light despite the flutter in my chest. The barista raised an eyebrow at the tandem order, as though to say, "Interesting pairing." Espressos arrived in porcelain demi-tasse cups, the crema a swirl of burnt sienna and gold. I lifted mine, inhaled the earthy bouquet, and felt a thrill at the ritual's simplicity. He offered me a small smile, as though sharing in something sacred. We moved to a high stool at the corner of the dark oak bar. The cafe's walls, exposed brick and reclaimed wood, felt intimate, as though the building itself were leaning in to listen. Steam curled from our cups, dissipating in tendrils of warmth. Fairy lights overhead blurred into soft bokeh, framing us in a private spotlight. He set down his cup and studied me over the rim, eyes steady. "Thank you for meeting me," he said, voice low enough that only I could hear. "I wanted a chance to talk, beyond coffee." I nodded, stirring sugar into mine, the ribbon of cream unfolding like an invitation. "I'm glad you asked," I replied. "This place is unexpected." My cheeks warmed beneath the cafe lights. He chuckled softly. It's my favorite spot. Quiet, unpretentious, and close to my office. He tapped the card he'd given me last night, now pocketed against my heart. I hope you don't mind. I shook my head. Not at all. I paused, summoning courage. So, why espressos? Why not lattes or cappuccinos? His smile flickered with amusement. Because I needed something strong and direct. No frills. Like this conversation, his gaze held mine, and I sensed layers beneath the surface courtesy. We talked in leisurely words, first about the storm's havoc, commuter woes, the cafe's owner who'd reopened it despite neighborhood pushback. He listened with intent, nodding at each detail. Then, almost casually, we shifted to personal terrain, my late-night shifts at the bookstore, his evenings spent poring over airline reports. As I spoke of juggling double shifts and unpaid rent, his expression softened. You've faced more storms than most, he said, yet you still show up with grace. His compliment struck me like dawn, breaking through clouds. When he talked of his own pressures, destinations rerouted by weather, airline margins threatened by unpredictable upheavals, he did so with practiced restraint. Yet I caught glimpses of the man beneath the CEO persona, the pilot who once strapped into small aircraft, chasing horizon lines with wide-eyed wonder. Our conversation stretched beyond 2 cups. I spilled thoughts I'd shelved. Fear of letting my mother down, the imposter syndrome that dogged every job interview. He offered empathy, not pity, leaning forward, voice earnest. Your resilience is rare, he said. So few people balance hardship with hope as you do. Then, just as the barista cleared empty cups, he reached into his jacket and produced a sleek black card, edged in gold. My pulse quickened. He slid it across the bar. In case you'd like a change of scenery, he said, eyes warm. Lounge access, gate 12. No questions asked. I lifted the card, embossed with Arden International's logo, a stylized laurel wreath cradling a wing, and felt its weight, both literal and symbolic. Gate 12 was first-class territory, a world apart from cramped economy seats. My breath caught as I realized what he offered. Entrance to a realm reserved for the privileged. I glanced at him, eyebrows raised. He met my gaze with a small nod. I hope it's the start of many conversations, he said, voice low. A hush fell as the barista reappeared, organizing pastries behind glass domes. The cafe's clinking forks and murmured orders seemed distant. I sank onto the stool, holding the card like a talisman. Thank you, I whispered, voice thick. He reached out, brushing a damp strand of hair from my temple. I mean it, he said, sincerity shining through the practiced calm. Coffee is just the beginning. Outside, the rain had slowed to a drizzle, noon sunlight breaking through roiling clouds. Inside, the cafe glowed with quiet possibility. In that moment, I sensed a threshold had been crossed, between provider and passenger, between stranger and confidant. He tapped the card against the bar. Meet me at gate 12 after work, he repeated, voice threaded with anticipation. My breath caught as I slid the card into my pocket, heart hammering with questions. Why me? What awaited beyond those gilded doors? The Alba cafe lights flickered as a sunbeam broke through the window, and I realized that accepting his invitation meant stepping onto a runway toward a life I had never dared to dream. When the gate agent handed me a first-class boarding pass, no name, no explanation, I realized I was stepping into someone's private world. My heart pounded. Had I earned this, or was it an invitation I wasn't ready to accept? Approaching gate 12, my palms trembled as I held the sleek black card William had pressed into my hand. The terminal's fluorescent glare and chatter seemed a distant dream. Here anticipation reigned. I watched the gate agent, a woman in a perfectly tailored navy suit, scan the card. No hesitation. A single gesture of her hand invited me forward, past the general boarding line, into the hidden realm of Arden's private corridor. The corridor walls were clad in dark teak, underlit by a soft amber glow. Plush carpet muffled my footsteps. A low hum replaced the terminal's bustle. Every detail, its hush, its shadows, felt curated to signal that I was crossing into something extraordinary. At the corridor's end, double doors swung open onto the Sky Lounge. Warm light pooled over leather seats in ivory and slate, arranged in intimate clusters. Side tables boasted silver trays holding crystal champagne flutes, each bubble rising like a whispered promise. A baby grand piano stood in the corner. Its player coaxed soft jazz that wove through the air like silk. I paused, absorbing the scene. I'd seen first-class lounges before, at major airports and travel blogs, but none so private, so immaculate. Here the air itself seemed designed to soothe. A few travelers lounged in carpeted slippers, sipping beverages and scrolling on tablets without a hint of rush. Then I spotted him. William stood near a frosted glass partition, backlit so his silhouette gleamed. He wore a midnight blue blazer over a crisp white shirt, no tie, an unspoken declaration of both power and ease. His storm-gray eyes met mine, and he extended his arm in welcome, palm up, as though inviting me into his world. I crossed the lounge, each step shrinking the distance between my rainy commute and this oasis of calm. He guided me to a sumptuous leather chair facing a low mahogany table. I eased into it, the cushion molding to my form. A discreet server appeared, gloved hands bearing a silver tray. He set down 2 flutes of pale gold champagne, then withdrew silently. William lifted his glass, motioning for me to do the same. "To new horizons," he toasted. I clinked my glass to his. "And to unexpected invitations," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. Champagne warmed my chest. I inhaled its delicate aroma, yeast and orchard fruits, letting it anchor me in the lounge's luxury. He studied me over the rim of his glass. "I wanted you here," he said, away from prying eyes. "Here ideas take root in quiet conversations." I nodded, heart fluttering. "Thank you for trusting me." He folded his hands. "It's not just privilege I offer you. It's partnership. Tomorrow's boardrooms, future flights. This all starts with what happens here." He paused deliberately. "But first." He slid a single matte black envelope across the table. My breath caught. I reached for it, fingertips brushing gold foil text. Project Aurora. He didn't need to speak. His words hung between us. The envelope was both key and challenge. I drew in a shaky breath. "When should I open it?" I asked. He smiled, eyes alight. "Read it once we're airborne. It explains everything. Why you? Why now?" Outside the lounge windows, runway lights winked against a dark sky. Inside, time stood still. I slipped the envelope into my pocket, the smooth cardstock pressing against my coat. He rose and inclined his head. "Shall we?" he asked gently, gesturing toward the corridor. I stood, brushing a damp curl from my face. "Let's discover the truth," I said. Together we left the lounge, retracing the dimly lit corridor to Gate 302. My heart pounded, not from fear, but from exhilaration. This invitation, once unthinkable, had become my reality. Stepping onto the jet's stairs, the envelope's weight in my pocket felt both heavy and precious. The cabin door closed behind me with a soft sigh. The engines purred to life. The flight attendant greeted me by name. "Welcome aboard, Miss Kapoor." I settled into my seat opposite William, the leather headrest warm against my back. Overhead bins clicked shut. The jet taxied to the runway. I stole a glance at him, his gaze calm, expectant. As we lifted into the night sky, the ground fell away in a blur of runway lights and terminal shadows. The cabin's lights dimmed to a soft glow. My pulse raced. The envelope's secret pulsed against my thigh. William leaned forward and pressed his fingertip to his lips in a silent wait. Then, voice quiet enough for only me, he said, "Open it now." I reached into my pocket, fingers trembling as I withdrew the envelope. The gold lettering shimmered in the cabin light. My breath caught as I peeled back the seal. He led me to a plush seat, slid a single envelope across the tray. "Read this when we're airborne." My pulse raced. What secret did it hold? The private lounge was a cathedral of calm, its marble floors and glass walls promising sanctuary from the storm. Yet every polished surface reflected my own disbelief. How had a rainy act of kindness brought me here? As soft jazz drifted through the air, I realized I was no longer a commuter fighting drips and deadlines, but a guest in someone's world of quiet opulence. The frosted glass doors slid open with a muted hiss, revealing a world far removed from the storm still raging outside. The scent of orchids, 3 towering arrangements placed on marble plinths, mingled with polished wood and faint sandalwood incense. Warm light from feather-shaped sconces shimmered across the marble floor, which gleamed like a mirror under my hesitant steps. A pianist in a tuxedo coaxed smooth jazz from a glossy black grand piano. Notes floated in the air, soft and languid, like the heartbeat of the lounge itself. The chaos of the terminal had vanished behind me. Here even the rain felt muted, its roar transformed into a distant whisper against the panoramic windows. A host in a navy blazer appeared at my side, with practiced elegance. "This way, Miss Kapoor," he said, leading me toward a secluded alcove of velvet chairs in midnight blue and muted gold. I sat, sinking into the plush cushion, my damp coat still clinging to me. For a fleeting moment, I wondered if I belonged here at all. Then he arrived. William, no longer hidden under a soaked hood, but immaculate in a tailored blazer, storm-gray eyes calm, yet unreadable. He raised a hand, and within seconds a waiter appeared with a silver tray holding 2 flutes of champagne. He handed me one, the glass trembling slightly in my hand as I lifted it. "To serendipity," he said, voice warm and resonant. Our glasses chimed, a clear note in the hushed air. As the bubbles fizzed across my tongue, I stole glances at him, piecing together what I now suspected. The staff whispered his name, Mr. Arden, with subtle reverence, bowing as they adjusted his coat or placed crystal stemware before him. The way the pianist nodded slightly in his direction confirmed what my instincts already shouted. This was William Arden, heir and owner of Arden Airlines. I inhaled sharply, the realization nearly overwhelming. Arden Airlines, known for its sprawling routes, luxurious cabins, and global philanthropy, was his empire. And yet here he was, sitting across from me, sipping champagne as if we were equals sharing a stolen moment. I placed my glass down, fingers drumming softly on the polished table. "Why me?" I whispered, almost to myself. He leaned back, folding one leg over the other, his gaze steady. "Because you saw me when no one else did," he said softly. "You carried a burden that wasn't yours, without hesitation." His words struck me deeper than I expected. He slid a business card across the table, its gold-embossed crest catching the chandelier's glow. "William Arden," it read, followed by the winged laurel insignia I'd seen etched into boarding passes across the world. I hesitated, tracing the raised lettering with my fingertip. My heart pounded as I looked up to find him watching me intently. "My world is built on numbers, contracts, and endless schedules," he said, voice quieter now. "But what matters most is connection. And somehow, in the middle of a storm, you reminded me of that." The pianist played a lingering chord, and silence stretched between us, heavy with meaning. My pulse raced, not from fear, but from the realization that my life had already veered onto a path I couldn't have imagined yesterday. He leaned, closer, lowering his voice until it was barely above the piano's hum. "I'm William Arden, owner of this airline. And you, Miss Kapoor, have truly flown into my life." My breath caught, the world narrowing to his storm-gray eyes. In that instant, I understood. I was no longer just a drenched commuter, but a woman standing at the threshold of secrets, wealth, and destiny. What did he truly want from me? As the cabin door closed, the world outside vanished. Silk seats, infinite legroom, personalized menus. It was all so surreal. And yet the true revelation wasn't the luxury, but the man beside me, confessions waiting on his lips. Stepping up the short, carpeted staircase into the private jet felt like ascending to a different universe. The door slid shut with a pneumatic whisper, and the roar of the airport gave way to hushed elegance. A flight attendant in a tailored Navy uniform greeted us by name. "Welcome aboard, Miss Kapoor. Mr. Arden, good evening." Her calm warmth suggested she'd expected me for weeks. I offered a tentative smile and followed her into the cabin. Cream-colored leather seats arranged in spacious pairs curved against polished wood-grain paneling. Each armrest housed controls for seat position, lighting, and a touchscreen entertainment system. Overhead bins were hidden behind seamless panels, enhancing the sense of limitless space. She guided me to the forward seat opposite his. As I sank in, the leather seemed to mold to my shoulders. Crystal tumblers and bottled water embossed with Arden's crest rested on a sleek side table. Above, recessed LEDs glowed softly, simulating sunset. The cabin smelled faintly of white jasmine and fresh linens, a subtle luxury. William seated himself across from me and closed the frosted glass divider with a whispered click. "I hope you find everything to your liking," he said, voice steady. His storm-gray eyes reflected the cabin's gentle light. I reached for the menu laid out on a lacquered tray: herb-encrusted salmon with saffron risotto, Wagyu beef with black truffle puree, a selection of cheeses and pastries. It read like a Michelin star restaurant's listing. A second attendant arrived promptly to take our orders, addressing me by name and confirming my choice with practiced grace. Once she departed, the cabin door's latch disengaged and the engines hummed to life. We taxied and lifted off, the runway lights receding below. I peered out the oval window, our world shrinking to a ribbon of tarmac before dissolving into clouds. William closed his menu and leaned forward. "I realize this might feel overwhelming," he said. "Not everyone boards a private jet on their first flight with Arden." I set the menu aside. "I hardly know what to say. This is incredible." My voice trembled with awe and gratitude. He offered a small, earnest smile. "Let me explain." He ran a hand through his damp hair, pushing it back from his forehead in a gesture that seemed to bridge the gaps between CEO, pilot, and friend. "Years ago, I trained as a pilot in Colorado. I learned that flying demands humility. No amount of control can stave off nature's unpredictability." His confession surprised me. I pictured him in windswept runways, goggles raised on his brow, the pine-scented air rushing past a small cockpit. "I had no idea," I murmured. He nodded. "I vowed then 2 things. Never forget the awe of flight, and never lose the compassion it demands." His eyes grew distant, framed by the cabin's warm glow. When I inherited Arden Airlines, board directives and quarterly targets threatened to smother that empathy. I insisted on safety and innovation, but I always felt something missing: a human connection. The seatbelt sign chimed, and I glanced out to see soft clouds billowing beneath us. The engine's hum became a steady lull, yet inside, my heart raced at his words. "You never mentioned this before," I said softly. "Why?" He sighed, reclining his seat. "I feared vulnerability. Kindness can be mistaken for weakness in boardrooms, but I realized that true strength comes from trust and compassion." He met my gaze. "That's why I rescued you from the rain, not for PR or pity, but to find someone who reminded me of what genuine care feels like." My breath caught. The duffel bag's weight on my shoulder, the shared coffee, each moment now shimmered with new meaning. "You showed me the same," I whispered. "That small acts can ripple outward." He smiled, warmth blossoming in his eyes. "Exactly." As the attendant returned with our meals, I inhaled the rich aromas of saffron and sea salt. She set the plates before us and withdrew, leaving us alone in the soft lighting. I lifted my fork, savoring the first bite of salmon, tender, fragrant, utterly alive. He watched me, attentive. "There's one more thing," he said, voice dropping to a hush. He pressed a button on the console, and a slim envelope slid out from a hidden compartment. My pulse thundered. The envelope was matte black, embossed in gold. Confidential. Project Aurora. Beneath, my name appeared as Vice President, Community Outreach and Innovation. I traced the lettering, heart racing. "You want me to lead this?" He nodded. "You've seen me at my best, and my worst. I trust you to help shape Arden's future, blending innovation with empathy." I swallowed, the cabin's quiet intimacy accentuating the moment. "I accept," I breathed. He extended his hand across the table. I took it, our grip firm amid the hum of engines. The jet climbed into clear skies, bound for unknown horizons. Mid-flight, a sudden lurch rattled the cabin, and champagne sloshed in our glasses. He reached across and grasped my hand with steady assurance. "Promise me you'll trust me with everything," he whispered, eyes unwavering. My breath caught as the lights flickered. In that heartbeat, I realized our journey had transcended luxury. Now it was a test of faith. High above the clouds, his mask slipped. Behind the billionaire's poise lay loneliness and fear of failure, secrets heavier than any suitcase. In that hushed metal tube, I saw the man beneath the empire. The cabin dimmed to a warm amber as we climbed through stratus layers. The engine's steady hum felt like a heartbeat beneath us. I sank into my cream leather seat, blanket draped over my knees, watching rivulets of condensation race down the window. The outside world was a shifting sea of clouds lit by the moon. Inside, a fragile calm enveloped us. William sat across the low mahogany table, fingers tracing the grain as though seeking courage. His usual composure, ever the polished CEO and former pilot, flickered in the soft glow. I leaned forward. "You seem troubled," I ventured. He met my gaze, storm-gray eyes unguarded for the first time. "I don't sleep much," he confessed, voice quiet. "My nights are filled with safety statistics, incident reports, near-miss analyses, maintenance logs. I review every detail so that no passenger's life is ever at risk. But it costs me sleep and peace." He ran a hand through his hair. "I live in fear of one error, one system I overlooked." Lightning flickered beyond the fuselage, and the cabin shuddered with the storm's distant roar. I felt his burden in that moment, a man who commanded an airline empire still haunted by the possibility of failure. "That responsibility is immense," I said softly. "You carry more than profits on your shoulders." He nodded, gaze drifting to the model aircraft displayed in the cabinet behind me. My first true test as a pilot came before Arden became an empire. I was flying a small charter, researchers aboard. The forecast missed a microburst. We hit sudden crosswinds, instruments spun, cabin lights flickered, passengers screamed. I fought the controls blind, heart in my throat, until I crash-landed on a narrow airstrip. Everyone survived, but that panic embedded itself in me. I pictured him then, hands white at the yoke, rain lashing the windshield, the wail of alarms. "No training fully prepares you for that," I murmured. "The unexpected can always arrive." He closed his eyes, nodding. The board applauded the safe landing, but I heard only the wind's roar. I vowed never to let that happen again. Since then, safety became an obsession. Protocols, checklists, redundancies. I sleep in brief cycles, waking to nightmares of reports unsorted or details missed. A flight attendant glided past, securing a loose service cart. The soft click of her shoes on carpet was a reminder of the discipline he demanded of others, and of himself. I reached out, touching his hand gently. "You shouldn't bear this alone," I said. "Anxiety shared becomes lighter." I've known sleepless nights, dreading my mother's treatments, fearing I'd let her down. Talking it through helped his gaze met mine, vulnerability in his eyes. "You understand," he whispered. I thought no one could grasp this weight. He squeezed my hand, a silent plea for solidarity. The storm beyond roared again, lightning illuminating winglets that bowed beneath gusts. The plane rattled, and I gripped the armrest. His hand remained on mine, steadier than any bolt of lightning. "Cabin crew," he spoke into his in-ear mic. "Prepare for turbulence and secure the cabin." His shift from vulnerable confessor to commanding leader was seamless, proof that empathy and authority can coexist. The seatbelt sign flickered on. A jolt threw us downward. Cups on side tables rattled. The flight attendant looped her arms through straps on her vest, moving through the aisle to calm anxious passengers. William watched her, then turned to me. "Trust the process," he urged. "We'll navigate through." His calm reassured me more than any seatbelt sign. Slowly the turbulence eased. Engines resumed their gentle drone. The attendant offered us 2 waters. I accepted mine, letting the cool glass steady my racing heart. William exhaled, relief softening his features. "Thank you," he said, voice thick, "for understanding and for trusting me." Outside, the clouds parted to reveal slivers of moonlight. Inside, the shared vulnerability forged an unspoken bond. I lifted my envelope, Project Horizon, and slid it across the table. "This holds our path forward," he said. "But tonight, I wanted you to know the man behind the decisions." My fingers closed around the folder's edge. I felt the weight of its promise, a charter to reshape lives and a testament to our shared resolve. "I'm ready," I whispered. He nodded, eyes bright with gratitude. "Together, we'll carry both the burden and the hope." A sudden jolt rattled the fuselage, and he gasped, "Mayday, Mayday. We've lost an engine." My heart froze as the seatbelt sign flashed on, the hum of engines replaced by urgent alarms. In that split second, our fragile trust would face its greatest storm yet. Back in the Sky Lounge, the hush felt sacred, an oasis of sophistication far removed from the chaos of rain and jet engines. He pressed me through a hidden door, and I realized I was not merely a guest, but a confidant on the brink of revelation. Behind that unassuming mirror lay a vault of documents, blueprints of a next-gen fleet, impact reports, and my name embossed in gold. In that moment, I understood that kindness could open doors no umbrella ever could. He led me back through the lounge's soft amber glow, past clusters of first-class travelers and drifting servers with tray-held flutes of champagne. The orchids still gleamed by the windows. The pianist's final chords faded. My damp coat brushed the velvet chairs as we walked, its chill a reminder of how far I'd come from the rain-pelted street. He paused before a full-length, mirror framed in brushed stainless steel. The mirrored surface reflected my wide-eyed anticipation. Without a word, he tapped a code on the frame. 3 deliberate presses, a pause, then 2 more. I watched the glass quiver and slide aside, revealing a slim keypad nestled in dark wood paneling. His fingers flew over the buttons with practiced ease. A quiet click echoed down the corridor as metal bolts retracted. He offered me his hand. I stepped forward into a narrow passage lit by discreet LEDs. The air grew cooler, more businesslike. My heart pounded at the sense of crossing a threshold few had ever seen. At the passage's end, a heavy oak door swung open into a private study, carved from shadows and light. 2 wall sconces cast warm pools of illumination on a grand mahogany table. The ceiling arched overhead in deep charcoal, absorbing light so only the documents on the table stood out in sharp relief. Glossy black binders were stacked in neat rows, each stamped in gold. Project Aurora, Green Horizons, Community Uplift, Skybridge Initiative. Blueprints lay unrolled beside them, sleek aircraft silhouettes that tapered into solar wing designs, cabins that reconfigured at a tap, engines promising hybrid electric efficiency. I approached the binder, labeled Project Aurora, fingertips grazing its leather spine. The gold letters glowed in the sconce light. William stood behind me, his presence steady, watching. "These," he said softly, voice resonant in the hush, "are the seeds of Arden's transformation, from fossil fuels to sustainable power, from passive roots to lifelines of hope." He tapped a model aircraft under a glass dome, slender wings splayed with tiny solar cells. "Green Horizons will debut next year, solar-assisted flights to remote areas, cutting emissions by 40% on those routes alone." I turned pages of community uplift to reveal diagrams, micro airstrips etched into village clearings, community-run flight academies, cargo holds repurposed for medical supplies. Photographs showed farmers loading produce beside painted control towers. He watched my reaction. "I need someone to lead this," he said. "Someone with the empathy to shape policy, not just the acumen to manage budgets." My breath caught. You want me?" I whispered. He nodded. "You saw the man behind the burden. You treated me as human first, exactly the perspective these programs need." I closed the binder, meeting his gaze. The study's silence pressed in around us. I'd be honored," I managed, voice trembling. He signaled a staff member, and another door slid open, revealing a small cabinet of prototypes, miniature cabins, turbine cross-sections, modular water purification units for disaster relief. Each model glowed under pinpoint lights. My mind raced. Solar cells powering remote clinics, drones delivering vaccines, mobile classrooms touching down on hurricane-battered islands. Possibility crackled in the air. He retrieved a slim folder stamped "Launch Timeline" and slid it across. 6-month rollout, from pilot programs to board announcements. "We go public in Dubai at dawn," I swallowed, picturing headlines. "Unknown Samaritan becomes airline changemaker." The burden of influence felt both heavy and exhilarating. He placed a silken ribbon on the table, a keycard embossed with my name and title. "Vice President, Community Outreach and Innovation." Its weight in my hand echoed the duffel I once carried. "Welcome," he said, voice soft but firm. "Let's begin." As I closed the binder, an alarm chimed from the digital display. "Regulatory update pending. Southeast Asia corridor behind schedule." He frowned, tapping the screen. "Local regulations changed overnight." My stomach clenched as I realized our mission would test every ounce of my courage and compassion against the real world's unpredictability. He turned, eyes resolute. "Shall we?" Alone in a moonlit cabin, he tore off the final mask. His empire was a fortress of solitude. Money couldn't fill the void, only genuine connection could. And in the hush of 30,000 feet, he offered me his heart, a fragile truth far more precious than any corporate secret. The private jet's cabin door closed with a hushed sigh, sealing out the distant roar of terminal traffic and the mutter of last-minute boarding calls. Overhead, recessed LEDs dimmed to a gentle twilight glow. The engine's throaty hum vibrated through the floor, a steady heartbeat beneath our feet. I secured my blanket across my lap and traced the stitching of my leather seat, aware that every detail, from the pale jasmine scent in the air to the polished wood grain, had been arranged for comfort. Yet comfort felt distant compared to the vulnerability I sensed in William's posture. He sat opposite me, storm-gray eyes reflecting the cabin's soft light. The envelope, Project Horizon, lay unopened on the small mahogany table between us, an emblem of responsibility and promise. But before I cracked that seal, he had one more confession to share. The hush stretched. Then he exhaled, voice low and unguarded. "There's something I've never told anyone." He paused, fingers curling around the stem of his empty champagne flute. "My father's last words to me were, 'Never forget the sky's heartbeat.' He died testing a prototype jet, before I was old enough to understand destiny. I inherited Arden at 21, not by merit, but by tragedy. Since then, every achievement, every new route, every record profit has echoed his absence." The weight behind his words pressed on me. A man who built an empire on wings, haunted by the father who taught him to fly. "I'm so sorry," I whispered, reaching across to cover his hand. His fingers were cool beneath mine. "I wear his legacy like armor," he continued, eyes distant. "But beneath it, I carry his fear and mine. I fear one error, one miscalculation, could topple lives." He paused as the jet banked over a blanket of clouds, the faint strobe of wingtip lights flashing past the window. "I review every safety report," he said, voice thick. "Every night. Flight logs, maintenance records, weather forecasts. I run them in my head until sleep deserts me. I wonder if I missed a note, a bolt, a code. The fear of failure is my constant co-pilot." I felt tears prick my eyes. His confession wasn't a bid for pity, but an act of trust. "You shouldn't have to bear that alone," I said softly. "I've carried burdens too. My mother's illness, the worry of unpaid rent, the dread of making wrong choices. Sharing it helped me find perspective." He let out a hollow laugh. "I never thought I'd meet someone who understood that." His gaze returned to mine, vulnerable and earnest. The hum of the engines faded into a gentle backdrop for our shared silence. Lightning forked across the sky as we entered a pocket of turbulence. The cabin lurched, and I gripped my armrest. William snapped into command mode, his CEO confidence and pilot discipline coalescing. "Please fasten your seatbelt," he said into his in-ear mic. The immediate switch from emotional confession to calm leadership crystallized his dual burden, charting corporate courses and guiding lives through unseen storms. The seatbelt sign chimed on. A jolting drop sent a collective gasp through the cabin. Passengers' faces blurred in the dim light. The flight attendant looped her arms into her vest straps and moved down the aisle to secure loose service trolleys. William remained the axis of calm. He tapped the holstered tablet by his seat, scanning turbulence maps and autopilot settings. His voice, low but authoritative, issued instructions. "Reduce speed to 230 knots. Notify the cockpit we may need to climb 10,000 feet. Keep cabin service on standby." I watched him navigate crisis with precision, empathy underscored in every gesture, checking on anxious travelers, offering a reassuring nod to the attendant. In that moment, I realized his legacy of safety wasn't just corporate protocol, but a personal vow lived in every heartbeat. As the turbulence subsided, the seatbelt sign clicked off. The cabin lights rebalanced into quiet luminescence. A flight attendant returned with 2 glasses of still water, which she placed before us with a respectful bow. William accepted smoothly, then turned to me. "Thank you for trusting me," he said. Exhaustion softened his features, but relief glowed in his eyes. I met his gaze, words brimming with sincerity. "Thank you for sharing your truth." His hand found mine again. "There's one final thing." He reached into his blazer and retrieved the matte black envelope, swirling in gold leaf. Project Horizon. Community Outreach Charter. "I want you to open that now." My pulse thundered. I peeled back the seal, revealing a single-page memorandum promising scholarships for future pilots, community airstrips in remote regions, and disaster relief flights tailored to the vulnerable. At the bottom, my role was defined in gold script: Vice President, Outreach and Innovation. I gasped, the document's weight pressing on my heart. Outside, the clouds parted slightly, a slice of moonlight guiding our path. Inside, a new horizon unfolded, a partnership bound not by contract alone, but by shared burdens and mutual trust. William leaned closer. "Together," he said, voice thick with emotion, "we'll turn these programs into lifelines." I folded the charter close, fingers trembling. "I promise," I whispered. "I'll carry this vision as you've carried your father's legacy." He squeezed my hand, a silent vow in the cocoon of our private cabin. The engines purred beneath us, steady, unwavering as we forged ahead into uncharted skies. A sudden jolt rattled the fuselage, and alarms chimed sharply. He gasped, eyes wide. Mayday, mayday. We've lost an engine. My breath caught as the seatbelt sign flashed on. The cabin held its collective breath, and we braced ourselves for the true test of our shared resolve. When the storm hit full force, the plane shook like a leaf in a gale. Yet the real turbulence came from my racing thoughts. Had I stepped into an emotional tempest I couldn't navigate? In that pitch-black cabin, fear and doubt mingled with the flash of lightning outside. I had just folded the Project Horizon charter into my bag when the first violent lurch hit the jet. It felt as though we'd struck an invisible wall in the sky, sudden, jarring, stomach-dropping. Overhead, bins rattled ominously, and the amber cabin lights flickered. Outside, the wing flexed against a backdrop of churning storm clouds, lightning illuminating its silhouette in jagged white arcs. Passengers gasped or clutched armrests. A flight attendant braced herself against a service cart, her white gloves tightening on its handle. The seatbelt sign chimed on, red and insistent. My heart thundered as I snapped my belt shut, every muscle coiled in tense anticipation. William, seated across from me, remained remarkably calm. His training as a pilot and leader surfaced instantly. He tapped his in-ear mic. "Cabin crew, secure the cabin. Prepare for possible altitude change." He rose, moving down the aisle to assist the attendants, checking that loose items were stowed, guiding nervous travelers to reinforce their belts. I watched him transform from confidant to commander. His voice, though measured, carried authority that grounded us all. Even in crisis, his empathy shone. He paused by a panicked mother, offering a reassuring word. By the time he returned, the worst of the turbulence had passed, but his presence lingered as a stabilizing force. A second sharper dip stole my breath. My knuckles went white on the armrest. William slid into the seat, beside me, placing a steady hand on my shoulder. "Stay calm," he said, voice soft but unwavering. "We'll ride this out." Lightning flickered again, and thunder rolled across the fuselage. I closed my eyes, breathing deeply, recalling how small kindnesses had steered me here, from the bus stop umbrella rescue to the cafe's warm glow. If a single act of compassion could carry me through a downpour, perhaps it could steady my heart against this airborne tempest. Outside the window, rain hammered the fuselage in a series of sharp rattles. The jet shuddered, and the engine's hum rose to a frantic pitch before settling into a strained whine. Moments later, the turbulence eased, replaced by a tentative hum. The seatbelt sign dimmed, but I kept mine fastened, unwilling to relinquish the security it provided. William exhaled, relief washing over his features. He turned to me, concern in his eyes. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded, voice tight. "Thanks to you." He gave a modest shrug. "It's my job, my obsession, really." Safety first. Always I met his gaze, seeing the weight he carried. "You've already done more than any protocol could demand." He offered a small smile. "Thank you." He reached into his jacket and produced 2 bottles of water, handing me one. The cool condensation calmed my racing pulse as I took a grateful sip. In the hush that followed, I reflected on the journey that led me here. From heavy rain and a duffel bag to midnight confidences at 30,000 feet. Each step forged stronger bonds of trust and purpose. Now, nestled in this cabin of luxury and vulnerability, I felt part of something larger, a shared mission to blend innovation with compassion. The turbulence behind us, the cabin resumed its gentle rhythm. Soft background music replaced the alarms. Flight attendants moved quietly, offering reassurance. I leaned back, studying William's profile in the dim light, his jaw set, eyes alert, yet unafraid to show emotion. He tapped the tablet embedded in the armrest, bringing up a flight path chart. "We're clear of the storm cell," he said, pointing to a smoother route ahead. "We'll still arrive on schedule." I nodded, comforted by his confidence. Then I reached for the folder labeled Emergency Medevac Protocol. The new directive nested within Project Horizon, and slid it across the table. "About this," I began, voice steady. The team in Southeast Asia needs us on the ground within 12 hours. He studied the document, his expression shifting to determined resolve. Let's make it happen, he said. They're counting on us. Outside, dawn's first light began to filter through the clouds, a promise of calm after the storm. Inside, I felt renewed purpose. The turbulence had tested my courage, and ours, but it had also revealed the depth of our partnership. William offered his hand. I took it without hesitation, a silent vow passing between us. This journey was no longer about a single flight. It was about a shared destiny forged in adversity and guided by empathy. As the cabin lights brightened for landing, my phone buzzed. Emergency medevac patient stabilized, awaiting air support coordinates. William's jaw tightened. Flight plan change. Sri Lanka now. He met my eyes, voice resolute. Time to make a difference. My heart leapt. The real mission had just begun. In the gleaming boardroom, I stood before his top executives, not as a visitor, but as proof that compassion could steer a corporate giant. Crystal chandeliers scattered prisms of light across marble floors, yet nothing shone brighter than the truth I was about to share. My palms were slick, not with fear alone, but with conviction born from storms weathered together. The private elevator whisked us to Arden Tower's executive level, where polished granite floors reflected the city skyline beyond floor-to-ceiling windows. William and I exited onto a hallway lined with abstract canvases, bold strokes of color hinting at innovation and ambition. At the end, frosted glass panels bore the Arden crest. William paused, offering a steadying nod. I smoothed my jacket, clutching the leather-bound portfolio at my side. The double doors swung open onto a cathedral of glass and opulence, a vast oval table of dark mahogany surrounded by 20 high-backed leather chairs. Crystal chandeliers hung overhead like constellations, scattering light across marble floors. Executives in tailored suits sat poised, tablets open, eyes calculating. The air was charged, boardroom tension alive and humming. As we entered, all eyes turned. I felt the weight of scrutiny, the hum of expectations. The chairman, silver-haired and steely, rose and nodded to William. "Thank you for joining us," he said. William returned the nod. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce someone who's redefined Arden's vision, Miss Annika Kapoor." Polished silence. I swallowed and stepped forward. My heart thundered in my ears, but I lifted my chin and addressed the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I stand before you not as a consultant, but as proof that compassion, when forged in genuine crisis, can drive both loyalty and profitability." I clicked the remote, and the projection screen flared to life with the Arden crest, followed by Compassion as Strategy, Lessons from the Edge. The first slide displayed a photo from the bus stop, a rain-soaked act of kindness that sparked our partnership. Executives blinked, recognizing the image as real, unvarnished. Chapter 1. The Drenched Encounter, I continued. I recounted how a simple offer to carry a stranger's bag led to coffee, then to the first-class invitation. The room listened as I described shared vulnerabilities at 30,000 feet, our confessions in flight that revealed leadership's human core. Slide 2. Storm-tested protocols. I presented data showing a 27% increase in passenger satisfaction when staff followed the new empathy-driven turbulence response, and a 15% uptick in crew engagement after emotional resilience training. Charts rose in green bars, real numbers that spoke louder than any marketing slogan. An executive raised a hand. "Ms. Kapoor, how do these soft skills translate to our bottom line?" I nodded. "By reducing incident-related costs and increasing repeat business." A calmer passenger is a loyal passenger. Our pilot community flights in Southeast Asia saved $500,000 in emergency logistics and generated $1.2 million in new ticket sales through enhanced brand goodwill. Heads turned to the CFO's slide, graphs of ROI that softened skepticism into interest. I clicked to Strategic Roadmap for Empathy. 3 bullet points. Empathy workshops, mandatory for all crew and leadership, featuring real passenger stories. Crisis response teams, empowered to bypass red tape in emergencies. Community flights, charter routes delivering medical aid, expanding our market while serving humanitarian needs. I linked each to projected cost savings, risk mitigation, and revenue streams. The room's energy shifted, idealism grounded in hard metrics. Next slide. Scaling compassion. I outlined a phased rollout. Q1. Pilot empathy modules in 5 hubs. Q2. Launch community flights in 3 continents. Q3. Publish annual Compassion Index to benchmark performance industry-wide. Projected impact: 20% reduction in crisis-related liabilities, 10% increase in brand preference, and a new revenue line from philanthropic partnerships. When I concluded, silence held for a heartbeat. Then applause rippled around the table. Chairs scraped back as executives rose, unanimous in their approval. The chairman stepped forward, retrieving a small silver pin, Arden's winged laurel, and placed it on my lapel. On behalf of the board, we welcome you as Honorary VP of Passenger Experience. My chest tightened with pride. William rose beside me, eyes alight. Executives gathered for handshakes, congratulations murmured. I felt both exhilarated and humbled, proof that empathy, expertly applied, could triumph in any boardroom. The chairman lowered his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. Tomorrow at the Geneva Summit, you'll present this globally. Are you ready? I smiled, heart steady with purpose. More than ever. As applause faded, the head of global operations approached, tablet in hand. Miss Kapoor, she said, urgency in her tone. We've just received notice of regulatory hurdles on our African corridor. Approval expires in 48 hours. They need senior oversight immediately. My pulse skipped. Our Compassion Charter's first test awaited. Real-world stakes higher than any projection. I met William's gaze. He nodded with quiet confidence. I squared my shoulders. Let's go. The global ops lead tapped her tablet. Emergency meeting scheduled now. Felt the weight of destiny shift. From boardroom triumph to urgent battlefield. William extended his hand. Together, he asked. I clasped it firmly. Together. With a corporate charter in hand, I crafted new protocols blending human kindness with aviation excellence. Every policy I penned carried the weight of that single coin, aiming to transform an empire through empathy. As I drafted each guideline, I imagined the passengers, cold, anxious, hopeful, whose journeys would be reshaped. Morning light slanted through Arden Tower's executive suite, illuminating a sprawling mahogany table strewn with color-coded charts, tablet screens, and half-empty coffee mugs. I stood at its head, the Global Empathy Initiative binders arrayed before me like battle plans for kindness. My new title, Honorary VP of Passenger Experience, gleamed on my lapel. First on the agenda, rain-ready assistance. Drawing from my umbrella rescue, I drafted a protocol to turn storm delays into thoughtful service moments. Bullet points filled the charter. Automated alerts. Passengers receive real-time SMS when gates change. Umbrella volunteers. Ground staff equipped with branded umbrellas escort guests to lounges. Comfort kits. Warm blankets, hot beverages, and handwritten apology notes distributed to stranded travelers. I pictured weary commuters huddled curbside, a smiling ambassador offering shelter and a shortcut. Each clause emphasized personal touch. Volunteers will record unmet needs and follow up within 24 hours. I slotted budget lines, $2 million annually, for training and kit production, convinced improved goodwill would offset costs through loyalty. Next, share your Umbrella Ambassador program. Inspired by community spirit, I outlined selection criteria: emotional intelligence, local cultural familiarity, and conflict resolution skills. The manual detailed training modules, active listening, de-escalation, empathetic body language, and volunteer rewards, monthly Heart of Arden awards featured in our internal newsletter. I imagined ambassadors huddled under umbrellas, diffusing frustration with genuine smiles. With that drafted, I turned to comfort seat upgrades. In the hangar, I'd seen engineers tweak foam density and ergonomics. Now in the suite, I specified an oversight committee, a physiotherapist, veteran flight attendant, and passenger advocate tasked to vet prototypes. I appended human-centered design notes. Memory foam cushions must recover heat memory to body contours within seconds. I foresaw passengers on long hauls sinking into supportive seats that felt like a restorative hug. By lunchtime, I convened with the tech division for vulnerable passenger app features. Developers hovered over glowing monitors as I narrated scenarios, text and haptic alerts for hearing or visually impaired travelers. Safe passage, navigation, directing mobility-impaired passengers through barrier-free routes via in-app, maps, Family Connect seat pairing, and boarding notifications to keep groups together. Wireframes sprang to life under my guidance, high-contrast interfaces, voice command options, intuitive flows. I emphasized user testing with real passengers, insisting on empathetic error messages. We understand delays are stressful. Here's how we can help. Afternoon brought the leadership presentation. William and senior VPs in marketing, finance, operations, and HR gathered, curiosity flickering in their eyes. I placed 5 signature binders on the table: rain-ready assistance, ambassador program, seat upgrades, app features, and crisis response teams. The room fell silent. Compassion is Arden's competitive edge, I began, voice firm. Slide after slide displayed projected ROI, a 15% drop in complaints during inclement weather, a 12% boost in repeat bookings from app-based support, and a 20% premium pricing ability for enhanced seats. Graphs linked improved Net Promoter Scores to revenue gains. I fielded tough questions. Q. What about budget constraints? A. These are investments in brand equity. Early pilots in 3 hubs cut delay costs by $800,000 while driving $1.4 million in ancillary sales. Q. How do we scale ambassadors globally? A. Partner with local universities and NGOs for volunteer recruitment, offsetting costs with co-brand recognition. By the final slide, a culture of compassion, our legacy. The room buzzed with energized nods. William rose to close. Annika, you've charted our course with conviction. Let's set sail at dawn. The CFO stamped the final budget sheet. The operations VP keyed in rollout dates. HR drafted training notices. The chairman himself pressed a gold embosser onto the last page. Approved. Global Empathy Initiative. Applause rose as I closed my portfolio. I met William's eye and saw pride reflected back. This moment marked the transition from plan to practice. As executives filed out to begin preparations, William leaned across the table. Tomorrow morning, you'll join me at Gate 12 for the first official launch, he said. My heart leapt. The policies would soon come alive on tarmacs and in cabins worldwide. I nodded, energized by the challenge and ready to transform Arden's promise into reality. The operations lead approached, tablet in hand. Flight 001 is ready for boarding. Activate rain-ready assistance, now. William tapped his watch. Let's make it happen. My chest tightened with exhilaration. The first flight under our empathy charter was about to take off. Today, kindness would propel an airline into its newest era. At sunrise over the tarmac, I held the keys to our new initiative, no longer a stranger in the rain, but co-pilot of an airline reborn by kindness. The runway stretched ahead, a ribbon of hope under the golden sky. Every dewdrop on the fuselage glinted like a promise that compassion could carry us further than steel ever could. Dawn's first light painted the Arden runway in rose and gold. I stepped from the operations van, portfolio in hand, and the crisp morning breeze carrying distant jet echoes. There, on the freshly painted asphalt, stood our inaugural fly with Heart Flight 001, its fuselage adorned with vibrant magnolia blossoms and the new livery ribbon in warm orange and teal. The Fly with Heart emblem gleamed over the wing root, a beacon of our human-first ethos. William joined me, holding a silken ribbon tied to a ceremonial key set. His tailored navy blazer caught the sun's rays, eyes bright with shared anticipation. "Are you ready?" he asked. I accepted the keys, heart thrumming. More than ever. Crew members, ambassadors from our new program, lined the walkway, umbrella-branded vests and warm smiles at the ready. Beyond them, families bound for medical flights, relief workers carrying supplies, and entrepreneurs clutching briefcases formed a mosaic of purpose under fluttering banners. Fly with heart. Compassion takes flight. Your journey, our promise. I inhaled, tasting the promise in the air. William tapped the keys on the cockpit door. Soft clicks, then a hiss as the jet's hatch opened wide. The lead flight attendant, uniform immaculate, awaited us. She accepted the keys with a polite bow and placed them in a dedication plaque inside the cabin. Flight 001, Compassion Co-Pilot, Anika Kapoor. I felt the honor settle around me like a second skin. Passengers climbed the stairs in orderly fashion. Families with children on medical evacuations paused to thank ambassadors before entering. Journalists with cameras hovered behind a yellow tape line, eager to capture our launch. I stepped aboard last, scanning the cabin. Each seat bore a small welcome card that detailed our empathy initiatives, rain-ready alerts, ambassador contacts, vulnerable passenger features, in clear, concise language. I took my jump seat at the front galley, smiling at the ambassador, who whispered, "Ready to make history?" I nodded, emotion catching in my throat. William took his seat opposite, locking eyes. The engine's hum deepened as we taxied. I felt a surge of pride. Our blueprint was no longer ink and data. It was alive in every life on board. The pilot's voice crackled on the PA. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard Fly with Heart Flight 001 non-stop to Nairobi. Please remain seated as we depart." A ripple of applause rose from passengers, genuine and warm. As the jet aligned with the runway lights stretched before us like a runway into the future. Engines spooled, thrust levers advanced, and in an elegant rush we lifted into the sky. The crowd on the tarmac cheered. Through my window, I saw the morning glow spread across the earth, a canvas of possibility. We climbed steadily, the cabin settling into gentle cruise. I leaned forward, calling to William over the hum, "The ambassadors are coordinating rain-ready texts and map guidance for stranded passengers at connecting hubs." He grinned, unsnapping his seatbelt. "Perfect. And app features live streaming real-time boarding updates are already in use." I smiled back. Plus, First Flight community flight notification is trending on social media. People are sharing their Fly with Heart badges. He reached across, tapping my knee in congratulations. "Today, we rewrite the story of what an airline can be." I nodded, heart alight. "This is only the beginning." He pointed to a tablet atop the galley counter, an incoming alert. "Emergency medevac request, Region Z Clinic." Our first real test awaited, already on our radar. He turned to me, eyes flames of purpose. "We have work to do, Compassion Co-Pilot." I took a breath and nodded. Let's change lives. As the sun rose above the clouds, the medevac coordinates flashed across every crew screen. Engines hummed in readiness. William's calm voice broke the hush. "Initiate priority descent." My heart soared. Our first flight of empathy was about to save real lives. The runway of possibility lay open beneath us, and together, we dove toward destiny. At sunrise over the tarmac, I held the keys to our new initiative, no longer a stranger in the rain, but co-pilot of an airline reborn by kindness. The runway stretched ahead, a ribbon of hope under the golden sky. Every dewdrop on the fuselage glinted like a promise that compassion could carry us further than steel ever could. Dawn's first light painted Arden International's runway in soft pinks and golds. I stepped onto the cool asphalt, portfolio in hand, watching steam rise where wheels had rolled the night before. Before us stood Fly with Heartflight 001, its fuselage freshly emblazoned with magnolia blossoms and the Fly with Heart ribbon in vibrant teal and orange. Colleagues in branded vests hovered, smiles bright as sunrise. William approached, tailored navy blazer crisp against the morning glow, holding a slender silken ribbon tied to ceremonial keys. He extended them toward me. "Are you ready?" he asked, eyes alight. I accepted the keys, cool metal warming in my palm. More than ever. Crew members lined the walkway, umbrellas and comfort kits at the ready. Behind them, families bound for medical evacuations, local entrepreneurs carrying produce samples, and relief teams carrying supplies formed a tapestry of urgency and hope. Banners fluttered above. "Fly with heart. Compassion takes flight. Your journey, our promise." I inhaled deeply, the tang of jet fuel mingling with dawn's crisp air. William tapped the keys on the cockpit door. It swung open with a pneumatic sigh. The lead flight attendant, uniform immaculate, accepted the keys with a respectful nod and placed them into a dedication plaque. Flight 001. Compassion. Co-pilot, Anika Kapoor. Passengers boarded via portable stairs adorned with magnolia garlands. Each seat bore a welcome card detailing our empathy initiatives, rain-ready alerts, ambassador contacts, app features for vulnerable travelers. I stepped inside last, lowering myself into the jump seat beside the forward galley, exchanging a smile with the chief attendant. Outside, journalists with cameras and officials in suits watched from behind a rope line. William gave a courteous wave. The tarmac crew cheered softly as we prepared for departure. The pilot's voice crackled over the PA. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard Fly with Heart Flight 001, non-stop to Nairobi. Please fasten your seatbelts as we prepare for takeoff." The engine spooled into a smooth crescendo. We taxied past dawn-lit terminals, runway lights stretching before us like a jeweled pathway. I glanced at William, his storm-gray eyes reflective, a blend of excitement and resolve. We lined up on the center line. As the thrust levers advanced, the cabin hummed with expectancy. In an elegant surge, the aircraft lunged forward, wheels lifting from the ground into the soft morning sky. A gentle cheer rippled through the cabin. Below, the runway receded. Above, dawn's colors blossomed around us. Climbing through scattered clouds, the world below shifted to a patchwork of fields and villages. The ambient cabin lighting switched to a soft day mode. I leaned forward to the galley counter, tapping the operations tablet. Activating rain-ready assistance for connecting flights in storm-affected hubs. The ambassador network had already dispatched ETA updates and volunteer teams. William reached across and tapped his watch. "Check the vulnerable passenger app metrics," he said. I swiped the screen. Families, elderly travelers, and those with accessibility needs had real-time notifications and streamlined boarding. Satisfaction scores soared above 90%. "Perfect," he whispered. "This is our proof of concept. Compassion in action." I nodded, pride warming my chest. "And the Community Flight Loyalty Program is trending among relief partners," I added. "They're booking routes for upcoming medical missions." He smiled, fingers tapping the console. "Next week's pilot route in Southeast Asia is confirmed. They've approved the micro-runway sites we proposed," I exhaled, excitement mingling with gratitude. This flight was no isolated event, but the catalyst for a new era, where an airline measured success not only in miles flown, but in lives touched. Suddenly, the operations tablet beeped with an urgent alert. Emergency medevac request. Remote clinic. Region Z. A map flashed on the overhead monitor showing the clinic's coordinates, dozens of miles off our flight path. William's jaw clenched. He turned to me, voice hushed but firm. We have a responsibility. Divert to Region Z. Medevac priority landing. My pulse quickened. Understood, I replied, adrenaline sparking in my veins. He reached out and squeezed my hand. Shall we? He asked. I nodded without hesitation. Let's bring help. The pilot's voice followed through the intercom. Fly with Heart Flight 001. We are diverting to Region Z for medevac. Estimated arrival in 2 hours. A collective nod of assent filled the cabin. Crew members prepared stretchers and medical supplies. Through the window, sunrise painted the clouds in blazing gold. Inside, compassion guided every action. Our inaugural flight had transformed into a mission of mercy, proof that empathy, meticulously planned and courageously executed, could save lives. As we banked toward Region Z, I realized this was the true launch, not of an airline's image, but of its soul. The runway of possibility lay open beneath us, and together, we soared toward destiny. Captain's voice crackled. Emergency descent in progress. Brace for landing. My heart pounded as the ground rushed up. In moments, our compassion would meet real-world crisis, no longer a test of policy, but of our shared resolve to make kindness count. If this story of compassion soaring above the storm inspired you, please like to show your support, subscribe, and hit the bell, so you never miss our next journey of empathy in action. Then share your favorite moment in the comments, and pass this video along to friends who believe kindness can change the world. Let's keep the Fly with Heart movement growing together.